Okay, so on this video, we are going to look at piercing. And if you don't get any value out of the rest of the video, I believe this part of the video series is the most valuable and will, in and of itself, pay for the money that you paid for this video. When I first got my machine, quick story while we're getting started, I was trying to pierce 1/4 inch plate or 6mm plate, and it took me days and wasted material, wasted consumables, lots of time. I would have gladly paid $200, $300, $500 to get the information on piercing. One, to get some sample files to start with, and two, learn how to tweak those files to dial it in and get it running correctly. So this might be a little bit of a longer video. We're going to walk through some details here and get you up to speed on piercing. So the one thing you need to know about your machine that you got to figure out is at what gauge or what thickness of material is the first thickness that you need to use a dedicated pierce. So like on my machine, it's a 1 kilowatt power source. The 10 gauge is the first thickness of material that I need to use a dedicated pierce. And it's a quick, fast pierce, doesn't take much at all. And then when you get to 3/16, it's even more. You need a 2-stage pierce, and 1/4 inch, 3-stage, and 3/8 a very long three-stage pierce. So when we talk about, single stage, and all that, let's jump into the piercing and take a look at what it looks like. So as you see, I've created these holes on the screen, and they're labeled, and each one of them is on a separate layer. So if we go over here to the right and click our layers area, you'll notice at the top I have a layer tab available for each one of the holes that we've put on a separate layer. So if you want to see the pierce on each of those, let's look at the green one first, the green layer, 16 gauge. And you see I've got my profile already loaded in for that. And if I click on the pierce tab, you'll notice that there's no pierce. The machine will cut 16 gauge or 1.6 millimeter easily without a pierce. So no pierce involved. And let's cut to the machine now and see this laser head move over, drop down, begin to cut, no dedicated pierce. Check it out. All right, well, you saw that. So I can cut 16 gauge, anything thinner. I can cut 14 gauge. I don't really show that here. And I think I can cut 12 gauge without a pierce. 10 gauge is the first gauge with the pierce. This is 3mm if you're in metric. So let's go back to our pierce routine and look at the pierce on that. So if we click here, you'll notice that we have a single stage pierce. And it's a very fast pierce. So we're not using a step time, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it's only a 200 millisecond. It is a hot, fast, 100% power cycle. Boom! It blows right through at a little bit higher than the cut height, and we're off and cutting. And so if you click back over, 200 millisecond pierce, down close, pierces right through and begins to cut. So single stage pierce on your first thickness of material that needs a dedicated pierce. So we're going to cut to the machine and see the 10 gauge pierce in action now. Okay, so layer 3, I'm going to move this over a little bit where we can see that and the pierce at the same time. That's 3/16 or 0.188, and that's somewhere around 4.5 millimeter in that range. And you can see our cutting parameters. It progressively gets slower. If you click on the pierce tab, this is our first thickness of material that we need a 2-stage pierce on. And if you'll notice that on a 2-stage pierce, our first pierce is at 50% power. You'll notice here that We've got a lower frequency. You'll notice all the piercing will have a lower frequency, much lower than your cutting frequency. That's a common theme, and that's actually a variable that you can tweak if you need to, and I'll show you how to tweak that in detail. But you see this is our first two-stage pierce. Again, 200 milliseconds, our last stage, our first stage. And by the way, let me show you that the progression of the piercing, stage 3, if you had a 3-stage pierce, would be your first stage, and it's going to move down closer. You see the cut height, I don't have it on right now, but it would start at 0.6 inches, move to 0.4, and then down to 0.1. All right, so let's switch over and cut and do a 3/16 pierce right now. All right, so you saw the 3/16 pierce. Now we're going to move over to 1/4 inch, and we'll pick our purple layer. And if you click on the pierce tab, you'll see here that we now have a 3-stage pierce. This is the 6mm 1/4 inch plate, our first thickness on a 1 kilowatt machine that we need to go to a 3-stage pierce. You might be able to get away with a 2-stage pierce on this. I've tried it. I was able to get it to go through, but it's very questionable. It works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. And we're going to talk about what it looks like when it doesn't work and what you need to do to have an impact on that and change it. But you'll always notice on a 3-stage pierce this common theme where it's piercing up high. We got low power, 50% or even lower in some cases, and it's really fast. And we also have a low frequency. Sometimes you'll even see this at a lower frequency than this, like maybe 40 hertz or something. And you'll notice that our middle stage of the pierce is what's doing most of the work. So we drop down to 0.3 high. We're up at about 70% power, and we're piercing for almost a full second. And then our final stage of pierce, we're dropping down even lower. At 100% power is where it actually will blow through the material, the very final bit of it, and that's usually a shorter stage, and and so forth. And then we drop over to cut. So let's pierce and cut some 1/4 inch plate. Let's switch to it now. Okay, well, you saw the 1/4 inch plate cut, and now we're over to the 3/8. I'm going to move it over on this side, and let's go to that layer, and we'll go to the pierce. And you see here that we have a 3-stage pierce. And really the difference here at this layer is what you're going to want to do is this is going to be, like 2,000 millisecond. And, our cut height is going to be something like 0.3. So we're kind of doing this one as we go. I'm showing you this. Your middle stage, again, you want about 70 to 80% power. And the focus on all of these, you'll notice, is not available because the simulation doesn't have an autofocusing head enabled on it, so I can't actually change the focus. But you're going to get these files, and you're going to see the focus is going to be a progressively negative number. All right, so that is 3/8. It's a longer cycle. And let's switch over to the machine now, and you will see the 3/8 pierce. And then after that, I'll show you how to diagnose your own pierce. What's happening with it, what's working, what's not working, how to tweak it and dial it in for your machine. Because from plate to plate, it could change. I've noticed it on my machine. I can cut a 3/8 plate or 10mm steel, and it pierces great, and then the next thing you know, I load another plate on there and it's not piercing right, and it just takes a little bit of a tweak to get it back dialed in. It's something, once you get experience doing it, you'll be able to do it, diagnose it very quickly, and know what to adjust. So let's go out to the machine and finish up this part of the video. Before we do that, let me show you one other thing here. At the top, you'll see this pre-pierce. If you're piercing thick material and you've got a lot of features in a confined area, if you click this pre-pierce, and let's say you got a plate with 10 holes all in a small area, what it's going to do is go and pierce all the holes first, and then it will come back and cut all the holes separately. And what that does is it allows the pierce is a very hot function in thicker plate where it really heats up the plate fast. So if you pierce and cut right after it, you're really heating it up a lot. And this will allow it to sort of do its own cooling by pre-piercing, and then it'll come back and use the pre-pierced holes to begin the cut with. And I'll show you that. We'll demonstrate that a little bit here at the end of the video, and we'll wrap it up with showing you a pre-pierce. So let's move out to the machine now, and we'll show you some stuff on the machine and wrap up this video. All right, well, you saw the 3/8 plate there, or 10mm plate being pierced and cut, and it did a beautiful job. You can see that cut edge right there, and I'll show you the offcuts here in a second. But I wanted to just give you a little bit of information on how to diagnose what is happening. And so you want to take the files that you got in the video, and you want to apply those, but you really want to pay attention to what's happening on the screen or in your actual pierce. So I want to show you this right here. I'm going to show you two different pierces. And if you'll notice in the second stage of pierce, as it drops down, you're going to see that it's going to get really hot really fast. You're going to see that the pulses, which is controlled by the frequency setting, are going to be going really fast. And it's just going to blow molten all over the top of the plate. And as soon as you see that do that, you want to immediately hit pause, because all it's going to do is start to cut without being pierced all the way through, and it's going to make a real mess, and you're going to blow out your lower lens and cause all kinds of problems. But I want to demonstrate to you so you can recognize it. When you're doing your first cuts on thicker material, you want to be standing nearby with the pause button, watching it very closely, ready to hit pause and make some tweaks and go to the next progression in your test here. So I'm going to move this over, and let's move back. So I want you to watch it now. So here we go. Sure enough, as soon as you get good at something, you can't even make it act up. But when it's acting up, I'll tell you what, it's really frustrating. So I've exaggerated the settings to duplicate what I'm trying to show you here. So let's try this again. And again, you're going to watch for it to start to boil over on top of the plate. So I'm going to hit start. I'm going to move it over. All right, so I'm going to hit start, and you're going to watch it boil over on the plate. And as soon as it does, you're going to hit the pause button there. So try to show you. Let's get this camera moved a little bit further where you can watch my remote action. Oh yeah, that's what you don't want to see happen. And as soon as you do see that happen, I mean, it is a huge mess. If you let it try to cut, I mean, you can see what a huge crater it blew up on top of the plate. This is what a good pierce should look like in thicker material. That's what happens when you get too aggressive. Okay, so let me show you on the screen here. Bear with me. So we're going to go to the pierce tab, and we're going to look at the middle stage. You want to diagnose what stage it's in as well. While you're watching it, did it do that at the first stage, or stage 3, or did it do it in the middle stage where it was getting more aggressive? And a couple of things that you can change. If you're running too much oxygen pressure, that oxygen really generates the heat. So we want to back this down, and that'll take some of the heat away. Your piercing power, 90% is way too much for that middle stage with the 1 kilowatt. So we're going to back this down to about 75%. And I'm going to say okay. And I'm going to stop this because I paused it, mid-cut. I'm going to set you right back up on the tripod. No editing, no cutting of anything out. I'm going to zoom you right in where you can get close to it to see what's happening. And I'm going to move over a little bit. I mean, this is the only change that we made. And get that where you can see it. See how much quieter that is and how reasonable that is? Beautiful cut. Boom, right out of there. Okay, so that's how you diagnose your pierce. Now, on the other way, let me show you this. You also don't want to be so conservative that you're wasting a bunch of, of extra time here. And let me just show you the, so, you have these settings right here, how long it's actually piercing, and we can put extra puffing in there, which kind of serves as a cooling function where you have the oxygen on but no laser beam, so it'll pause by that amount of time. And there's a safe zone here. And to exaggerate and show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to make this 6,000 of extra cooling time there. And we're going to put a delay right here of 1,000. So that'll really exaggerate it. So as you're trying yours, you may have to put extra cooling in there. You may have to put extra delay time. You may not. But I'm going to hold this down here. And what we're going to look for is you're going to want to watch as the piercing's happening and look at the bottom of the plate and watch how long it's actually through the bottom of the plate before it actually starts to cut. If it's too long there, you're just wasting time and you're wasting gas. If it's too short and you get kind of aggressive on it, it may move to a different part of the plate where there's a little bit more mill scale or the thickness of the plate's, different. And it won't actually make it all the way through, and you'll get something like that where it tries to cut, and it's just bubbled up. And so you're looking for a happy medium. You don't want it to be way too long, but you want a little bit of a buffer zone there. So we'll try it right there. And I'm going to show you down here, and you'll notice where it actually gets through the bottom of the plate. Not through, not through, not through, not through. Boom, there it is. Now you see the delay. See how long it's pausing there? You want some pause, but that's way too long. Now it's actually starting to move and cut. So that's what you're looking for, is to find the balance between too hot and too short. I mean, too hot and too long of a pierce and too short, and you see the difference there. All right, let me show you the pre-pierce real quick and what that looks like. All right, we're gonna cut 6 of these out, and I wanna open up the layers tab here and show you this. I have checked the pre-pierce, and you might need to use this sometimes. I've also, you see I've got a slow lead on here. I talked about that in one of the previous videos. That's a pretty good tool that you might need to use in thicker material, to really fine tune and dial in your plate. But we're gonna pre-pierce, and you'll notice that it's gonna pierce all the holes first. So it's gonna pierce that one and then that one and that one. While it's piercing these other ones, this one over here is getting a chance to cool. And that'll help you with the thicker material because you get so much heat input into the plate. So I'm gonna put you back on the camera stand here, the tripod, zoom you in close so you can see what's happening. And I got this, and we're just gonna start it, and you're gonna see the pre-pierce happen. You notice there's a little extra cooling there after it gets through. That's just a little bit of safety. You might find on your machine that you can speed that up and not have it delay quite so long there. But you also might find that you need more of it. Just depends on your machine and the plate and a lot of variables. You can see this is kind of rough hot roll plate. which is a little bit harder to pierce. I'm telling you guys, what you paid for here, getting this pierce routine and this information, if you're a brand new user, it's worth every bit of the money you paid for it. Now it's going back and it's actually cutting. All right, there's your results. And you can see that very comfortable pierce right there. You know, that's a decent pierce compared to something like that. Thanks guys, hope you enjoyed the video and it was helpful to you.